Welcome back, everybody. I am so happy to be presenting you Mitch Leppicello. And he's a certified autism specialist and holds a master's degree in clinical social work from Fordham University in New York. He has over 30 years experience providing psychotherapy for children, adolescents, adults, and families in a variety of treatment-based settings. He is a professional member of the Minnesota Society for Clinical Social Work and the Clinical Social Work Association. Mitch has served on the advisory boards of local schools and community organizations supporting positive mental health practices for children and families. He has advanced clinical certifications in both eye movement, decentralization, reprocessing, mouthful, and
That's a mouthful.
commonly known as EFTR, that, and thought field therapy. I know he's going to tell us all about that. He helps parents and caregivers navigate countless challenges associated while parenting individuals of all ages with ASD, and is the creator of ASD Parenting Journey and the Calm Compass. And I know that we all need a very calm compass in that storm. As one is, yes, it really does help.
One is,
yes. Thank you, Mitch, for being here with us today. I really am happy you're here. I'm really happy to be working with you. I know calm is important. Just the word calms me down. Now, if I can just stay that way. So without further ado.
Karen, I am honored. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be a part of the World Autism Summit. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope I can offer some tools and strategies for parents, caregivers, people who work, anybody really who works with people with autism. Things that I've learned a long time. I've done sort of a version of this presentation since 2000, and I've learned a lot. It is certainly not the same one I've done 20 some years ago. So thank goodness we keep learning and growing, and I love that this is, your mission. Really do.
We're really lifelong learners, and that's so important to our mission. And so what about this conference is different for you in that we're a World Autism Summit? What called you to present at our conference?
It drew me to just the title of this is that, autism crosses continents. Autism is global. ASD is from everywhere. We've learned things as I've learned about it. I've learned that in two different parts of the world, people were studying ASD and didn't know about it. From the UK and Germany to the United States and New Zealand, and I mean just everywhere, all over the place. People are learning and understanding, and I think we just need to we need to come together. We need to understand it globally in order to provide best practices for folks.
It's very different globally. Each corner of the world has different challenges. Each culture.
Absolutely right.
How do you plan to share your expertise? Or do you have offices around the world, or do you plan to grow and develop in other countries?
The program that I'm going to present today is available as wherever you have an online access. I am so fortunate to have partnered with Unitas TI, the publishing company, to just expand access for anyone and clinics and groups and schools kind of anywhere. So it's not just the US or North America for that matter. I mean, people in any country can use this. It's probably not language available for everybody, but that is certainly upon request. I would love to get it in languages more than just, English. But in the meantime, I've talked to people and have done podcast interviews on the Calm Compass strategies with people in the UK. And they're like, and very interesting, similar conversations about kids and families and, and young adult struggles. It just crosses the pond and then some, right? So,
fortunately, so many different translating tools are going to be available to us, so that all these.
Oh yeah, right.
All these different methodologies can be shared globally. much more easily, like walking up to somebody and having an app to say, okay, tell me in my language.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Interpret these strategies. I need these now. And
Great.
I think that's what also kind of like drew me to, there's sort of an urgency with the World Autism Summit. Parents are calling out, we need strategies now. We don't
Yeah.
have time to wait. We don't have, I don't want to wait 6 months or a year to see this person or and accessing services. If I can't get to that clinic or that place or that school or that center, that organization, what do I do? And we really are using technology in such a great way here by making this global. It really is a global world now.
So good. Yeah, I know I've been talking to people that have to wait 10 years sometimes just to get a
Holy
diagnosis.
cow.
Yeah, just to get a diagnosis. So, I mean, I guess my advice to them is look at what manifestations of a diagnosis, what would it ultimately, what would it unpack, which would be, behaviors, social skills, communication, sensory, relationships, all those 5 areas. And I know that a lot of your tools will address many of those. So without further ado, I'm going to let you do you and do your presentation so you
Oh,
can
thank
share
you.
with everybody. Thank you. Okay,
All right.
now I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Karen. No, it's all great. Thank you. I know it's really great to have a conversation about this too. A lot of people learn about conversing about, but I will jump into the information that I put together here for you all. Um, I'm hoping that my Zoom screen, does not show up, but maybe what I'll do is,
I don't think it
oops, I
does.
did the wrong.
I think that's
Okay. Okay.
perfect. We live in a
Okay.
perfect universe, right?
Right. Okay, great. Um, so my message, my message as always to parents, is you are not alone. Every day for you is a big day, and every day with your child, whether they're 5, 10, 15, 25, 35, 55, it matters how you see them and how you can help them. So I'm appalled that I think Karen and I just talked about, this waiting list of sorts, this waiting for action, this putting it off. So that's been my drive to help parents and families find something different. So let's start with um, a vision for your ASD parenting journey. Your journey needs a vision. What let's imagine what you can take away from this presentation today, the parts and pieces that resonate for you, and create that for yourself. Write things down, take notes about how you want to be different um, with your child. This is so much more than a do this so they'll do that kind of process. Um, and and in order to do that, we need to be in that really prime mental space to think about how change and what change would feel like. I'm going to say you can do it. So I'm going to leave you with you can do this. Start with that vision. I know it's hard, but you can do this. Okay. Um, what are some what is help? How is help good? Um, how to stay in that helping mode with your child. Sometimes we get out of helping mode and we're in antagonizing mode. We're in resentful mode. We're in sad, shame, guilt. Did I do something to hurt my child mode? And when we're in any of those, we are not helpful. And is that natural? Of course it is. Of course it is. As a parent, yeah, we all feel it. But let's remember that when we're in those negative modes, we are not helpful for our children. So we want to stay in those. What can we do to help them? Um, and how do you see yourself doing that differently? Let's talk about some learning objectives. I just identified 5 for today, for the hour here. Um, so strategies, so key aspects of ASD. We're going to talk just about, we're not going to dive deep into autism and neurodiversity. We're just going to hit on some basics and basis for the change that I'm going to help you guys establish with your kids, at least leave you thinking about what that change looks like. And then some real strategies here, self-regulation strategies, positive, effective communication, helping them when they're feeling down, discouraged, frustrated, and despair, and how to move those feelings, sometimes without talking. Sometimes we don't need words. Sometimes we just need to move. Okay. The Calm Compass is based and founded on the credo, understanding to action. I created this because a lot of people didn't know what ASD really was for their child. And of course, it's different for every child, for every person. Uh, again, regardless of the age, everyone has different experiences. So we need to understand it to take the best action. If we misunderstand it and misinterpret the consequences, as I have heard in my experience for far too long, are consequential and tragic in a lot of instances. Having heard about parents wishing that they understood autism when their child was young, and now they're in their 40s. So we need to understand it. So one of the first questions I ask people that I work with is, what do you know about your ASD? What do you know about your brain and how it thinks and works? And sometimes it's confounding, and sometimes they say, I'm really smart and playing the piano. I'm really I get angry really quickly. So I'm like, all right, all those are little pieces, and we'll put that together to help them. So understanding to action is really the foundation for Calm Compass. What are we trying to, so the more we know, the better our actions, right? So what are we trying to change and support? What's at the root of my child's challenges with ASD? And how can we use a strength-based, pro-social perspective to overcome those challenges and build skills? So I created the Calm Compass parenting program, and it's just this. And I'm gonna describe it a little bit, but it honestly, there are so many versions of this. This is Mitch's iteration of hearing from parents for the 30 plus years, using very common practical strategies, and putting them together in a place that people can think about when they think about a compass. Which direction do I go? I'm stuck. I need help. Calm, as you and I talked about, Karen, it's a great word. And I love the analogy. So let's just make 4 directions. Let's make 4 modules. And then let's include some strategies in each one of those modules. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's the Calm Compass. So who's it for? I just kind of did this a little bit here. 12 strategies, strength-based. It's positive, proactive, and preventative. And again, it's online and accessible kind of anytime, anywhere you have online access. There are exercises and videos of me helping you through those courses. The United TI platform has allowed a highly integrated and collaborative approach. So if it's with a mass amount of kids in a school or a clinic setting, and they have it for their program, parents can work on it as just an entry level part of their child coming into that program. And we know, I mean, the evidence is there that the more those parents are engaged in their child's ASD programming, the better the child will do, right? We just know that, and we need to use that research and information and put it into practice. So let's engage these parents. Not a lot of resources are put forward to helping parents in education or clinic settings. It's really for the one individual, it's a very patient and student model. So family access and caregiver support is scant in many, many different places on the planet. So this is just one drop in the bucket to help put that out there. There's just some more how it's good for other larger groups. All right, let's get to some learning objectives. Number one, understanding to action. So key aspects of autism. So let's understand a little bit of ASD. So I call this the 3 S's of ASD and their cohorts. So as we look, we've got social language communication interaction, sensory integration, selective and repetitive behavior, restricted interest. ASD in its diagnostic process has changed a little bit over time, but it's mainly set up these kind of 3 general areas. And it will probably continue to evolve the more we understand and know about ASD. But let's use this in 2024 to kind of provide what we know. So we know that it has a lot of cohorts. Holy cow, I think ASD has the most comorbidity, the most co-occurring challenges in any childhood developmental challenge that we're aware of. So from expressive and receptive language challenges, very difficult to assess and diagnose, by the way, allergies, kind of physical challenges, to a variety of anxiety disorders, from OCD and the like. And what is it? 60 to 80% of people with ASD also have the comorbidity of ADHD and some variation of ADHD. We're going to talk about today how these cohorts affect kids with ASD. And sometimes it's not the ASD that's the challenge, it's these cohorts that get in the way, that they make it most difficult. So think of all kind of the impact on just managing your ASD, and then you've got all these kind of cohorts in there that really make it difficult. All right. Well, there are also superpowers, strengths. So when you look at the 3 S's and you think, hey, well, yeah, Mitch, you're so negative, Mitch. I don't want to be negative. I want to be positive. I want to also look for, hey, what are you good at? What do you like to talk about? What do you like to talk to other people about? What do you like to think about? Think deeply in your mind about, sometimes so deeply in your mind that you're missing what else is going on in front of you. That's how much that interest is for you. I met a child the other day, a young person who was so amazing with their fine motor movement, and they kind of thought nothing of it. I'm like, you made that? You made that? I felt kind of like I'm repeating myself, but I kept saying to them, you made that with your hands? Like, you know, that is incredible. And it was hard for them to actually see my reaction, because to them, it was like, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I do. Like, it's not weird to me, Mitch. You're making it sound weird. I'm like, no, no, no. You have a strength, and we want to just know how you use that strength. So I had to temper it down a little bit, but it, it's great. It's great to see. And part of my intake and part of my meeting with people is all about, what are your strengths? And these are just common ones, right? So I left some blank ones here for you to think about. Your student, the person in your center, your child, the person you're taking care of, your grandson or daughter. What are some of their superpowers? What are some of their strengths? Because we need to use those strengths to help them. They are incredibly important. So this is almost more important than that. Okay, so think about this. As we're trying to kind of engage them, and help them grow. Here's a superpower. This child spent about 10 minutes in my waiting room, and came back and said, and kind of handed it to me without saying much. And I said, as his name indicates, Merritt, you did this just now. And he just looked at me and nodded. And his mom just sort of shrugged, like, yeah, that's what he does. I'm like, holy cow, that's amazing. So I kind of have it hanging up in my office. And it's just an amazing, it's just a little window into some of the great gifts and talents that I see. And that are out there, and that you parent and teach. Kids have these gifts and talents. We really want to get them out there and help them. And here's just another one of somebody's, I'm guessing, talents. All right, so these are just some questions that I get very regularly, commonly asked. How do I help my child regulate? Really, how do I help them? Um, what do I do and say to help them hear me, understand my words? My child gets down, depressed, says that they want to die, says that life's not worth living. How do I help them? Um, and then how do I help them do something other than, screen time, social and self-isolation, to help them be more engaged in the world around them? So we're going to integrate those questions uh, with Calm Compass strategies. So um, how about a Calm Compass to aid you on your journey? And yeah, we need kind of a direction to go. So let's look at the first question. How do I support my child to learn about and regulate their emotions and behaviors? How can I be the best co-regulator for my child? Strategies to help them with self-regulation. So we did learning objective number one, which is understanding a little bit of the comorbidity to ASD. The language, so social interaction, communication, selective interest, repetition, um, and it's kind of rigid thinking, right? And sensory integration. So let's start with the first direction in the Calm Compass, called Connect. There are 3 strategies in Connect, and we're going to start with Regulate. Probably my most favorite. I help people with self-regulation. It is kind of the most urgent for a lot of parents and teachers and other students. I mean, when kids are in self-regulation, I'm not sure if this is Dr. Porges who references online and offline, um, but when kids are in self-regulated state, uh, it's magical, right? As this picture demonstrates. So it's when they're not, right? But I'm gonna encourage you to look at when they're in this time is the time to be thinking and helping them, what they're doing right now, not in their dysregulated state. So, hey, why regulate? Why is dysregulation so difficult for kids with ASD? Well, it kind of goes back to understanding to action. We know that and understand that their emotional disequilibrium and dysregulation is common. And why is it common? For many, many, many reasons. The selective interest. Sometimes I'll do a quick little exercise with a child when we talk about the word surprise. I said, does that feel like a surprise when people ask you to do something without giving you a lot of time to do it? And I said, do this thing, put your hand over one eye, put this in, and imagine that this might extend out like a paper towel roll or something. And now imagine walking around looking through a paper towel roll. Basically a narrow perspective, a narrow way of seeing. How safe do we kind of feel about that? We don't. And so if something comes right before us and flashes before us, we're like, whoa, wait, what was that? And they might not have a way of just removing that challenge. That's kind of a permanent thing for them. So it includes the frequent personal threat of danger and safety, um, not shared by others, and that was from Dr. Porges. Look forward to hearing him and others talk at the World Autism Summit next week as well, or during our time. So why regulate? And then we just add ASD, difficulty understanding, communicating feelings and emotions, difficulty with mind blindness, and so on. So really, it kind of boils down to, this picture is just perfect. Am I safe here? Comes long before, what can I learn here? So if I'm not safe, it's really hard for me to learn. So we want to get their brain online, calm, regulated, ready to learn, ready to be social. I mean, learn socially, learn, you know, yes, the 3 R's, but also the three S's. So, all right. At this point, I'm going to stop for questions. Oh, wait, there's no questions because this is being recorded. So any questions, please submit them to.
Comments.
Yes.
I just want to say that this is really good, and I love the simplicity because a lot of people get overwhelmed with way too much information, and it's
Hmm.
nice to have it very simple, spelled out, very easy to follow and understand. And I wanted to ask you, how do you
Yeah,
deal?
Karen. Yeah.
Can you
Chime
hear
in
me?
here. Yeah. Yep, I can hear you. I'm encouraged. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Okay. Sorry about that. Now, I wanted to comment that it's very good that it's very easy to understand. I also want to know, how do you deal with non-speaking individuals? Is
right.
it
A lot of these strategies are visual. So for non-speaking, they respond to our nonverbal just as well. I mean, sometimes speaking to them is the worst strategy we have, using language with them. Now, I mean, that said, we're teaching them language, but we're also teaching them communication. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. So non-speaking is nonverbal. And so we need to understand what their nonverbal cues and strategies are.
that's
In
very
my practice, my most familiar work is with verbal, but even verbal people with high IQ um, pick up on nonverbal, high-end nonverbal communication,
yeah, for
right?
sure. That's for sure. That is for sure. A lot of sign language and a lot of gestures and
Yeah, things we don't even know what we're saying or communicating. I mean, I'll have kids, and I love this because they feed me like very blunt information about how I'm sitting in a chair or my facial expression, or Mitch, you're kind of bald. You're kind of shiny up top. And I'm like, oh, dudes, should I just, you know, I am. You're right. Yeah,
oh
good
yeah,
perception. What can I know?
you're
Um,
straight to the
yep,
point.
yep.
That's
Yeah, exactly. I'll hit a light. You want me to tone things down a little bit? You want me to like rub the,
yeah,
I didn't add a little extra shine for you. But
yeah.
yeah, they're very blunt about such things so that they can focus. And I just really want to encourage kids to be blunt. Now, I might help them in a social skill. Hey,
Mhm.
the social skill for that is this. So kind of getting back to some strategies for them. But they're reading nonverbal stuff all the time. Um, the senses almost that we use so much are senses that are kind of flip-flopped, if you kind of think about that. I mean, it's sort of equivalent maybe to someone who has a difficulty with sight or difficulty with hearing, how other senses kind of pick up and support that person, you know, being regulated. And I think that's the same with autism. I think it's just really not studied and understood very well.
Yep, way to go. Do you think that older kids are difficult or different in the way that you handle them as opposed to younger kids?
Um, Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes older kids need social skills as much or more as younger kids. They're just it might be more contextual. So the context is in either a work environment or um, uh, a family, a roommate,
Mhm.
college, university roommate experience, a cohabitating with other people, kind of an adult version of that child living in their own home. How do respond to when your housemate says, dude, do those dishes, man? What the heck's going on with you? You know, and that could be heard by that young adult person, or that adult person is, you know, stop yelling at me and get dysregulated. And pretty soon the housemates are kind of against them, and and so it's all about helping them in their situation,
Right.
uh, and kind of moving that, you know, moving the markers, moving the needle on that. So these strategies in general for young people and older, older kids and older people must be proactive, not reactive. We just don't do well with reactive. Do we need to keep people safe in a 911 situation? Of course we do. So we're going to react to dangerous or safety, security situations. But what we can do to avoid that and prevent that is really where my strategies lie. And even actually helping people, first responders, in reactive 911 situations, um, has been helpful. And I don't know, Karen, is anyone in the World Autism Summit talking about, how first responders, work with people with ASD, or is
Yeah,
there someone that, oh,
we actually did a whole World Autism Summit last year, and we had a woman who that's all she was about, is first responding. And
yeah,
that's, it was,
how important. Yeah. And there's strategies for that, right? So,
oh yeah.
right.
So, I mean, of course, when they sign up to get this summit, then they also get that summit too. So there's a
Nice.
wealth of information on first
Oh,
responders.
that's great. Well, I would definitely do it. Yeah. Yeah. Get that.
And
Get
first
that. I might
responders,
actually reach out to get that. Yeah.
and people that are in that realm really do need a lot more tools than people on the everyday thing, like
Right.
you know
Right.
so there's a lot of tools that
Right.
they can learn, but they have to learn them quickly, and they have to be able to react on a dime.
Right.
Like,
Right.
just my heart's right now in Florida, thinking about all these families that are trying to get out of Florida. It's like,
Right.
yeah, think
Talk
about,
about abrupt change and transitions, right?
yes,
All
yes,
the kids in Florida right now, really just the whole peninsula, the whole, region down there, from, yeah, Helene and Milton. So
yeah.
absolutely.
So they have to
So they are
have,
certainly reacting to an event
but they
and
have to
helping
be,
them with,
sorry, they have to be taught the skills ahead of time, so that it is not a
exactly,
reactive state, but a proactive state. Learn the tools,
exactly,
getting a
exactly.
child out of a dangerous situation by using a slinky. I've heard that being used. It's a very effective way. And to teach the firefighters and to teach all the first responders what ways you can engage with children. That is not the
Right.
typical way.
Yeah.
So you have to do
Right.
things different,
Yeah.
because they only
Absolutely.
change.
Right. Right. Right.
Anyway,
One of my favorite parts about this, and I'll move the slide here, is co-regulator. And many people have heard this before. I heard the term from a colleague of mine, Ann Garrity, here in Minnesota. But co-regulator is just a fantastic term for me. It's like you being the adult, the caregiver, the teacher, educator, staff person with that child. You are helping them regulate. So imagine yourself as, I'm not telling them to regulate. I am assisting in such a relational and strategic way. I'm a part of their regulation. I am not this, you know, obedient training, regulate, directive, authoritarian approach. This is very co-engaged, which is why Connect is all about the relationship matters. It's using your relationship as a person of trust and care and responsibility to be there for that child and not be dysregulated yourself. Do we get dysregulated as caregivers and providers? Absolutely. Um, and so we just have strategies to do that. So if you're in a dysregulated state and you're trying to help a child who's dysregulated, tap out, ask for help, right? You are probably not in a good spot. And that should really be like a mantra in schools and other places. Like, I need to tap out. And that really should be acceptable and understood and even planned for. Talking about prevention and preventative strategies. If you're working with a child in a school clinic setting and you need to, now we don't always get that opportunity. I understand. It's not all the time. Uh, but if that is if we can plan for that, then we are not in a space, and we need to take a few minutes to get back into that co-regulator kind of place, because we just aren't helping. Yeah.
that's very helpful.
Um, Okay, so one of the biggest strategies that I want to help people understand is changing the way we talk about feelings and emotions. As a clinical social worker, one of the biggest, one of the things I went to therapy school for is really to help people move those feelings and emotions. And back in the day, it was talking about and identifying every single feeling and emotion sort of possible. There were feeling wheels with, 10, 20, 30, 50 different words that were in these categories. And a little bit dizzying if you look back and look at these feeling wheels. I mean, some kids can't organize them that way. Many can't, and many with ASD have alexithymic kind of response to that, which is, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know how to say the words I'm feeling. And so over the years, I've just really focused on finding the place of distress and eustress. So eustress is positive stress. And I just sort of talk about that with kids as saying, hey, when we're not in distress, we're in eustress sometimes. We're feeling good about things, but we're probably just floating back and forth most of the day. A little bit of distress, a little bit of eustress. Um, this presentation for me was a little bit of both. Like, I hope I'm going to do okay, but I'm excited to talk about this stuff, but I hope I'm going to do okay. So we kind of move back and forth in those states, and without getting too dysregulated. So I'm really wanting to help other people. I mean, I do it in my one office setting, one family at a time. And I would love to, spread this message that using words like stress uh, can can help people understand emotions in a different way. Um, so the definition of stress is any negative thoughts or feelings about myself or others. In this slide, there's the definition right there. So that is really what we're based on. So we don't have to ask kids, we don't have to say to them, "Hey, what feeling are you? Look angry." Well, what if they're not angry? What if they don't know what they're feeling? What if they're nervous, but they're mad that they're nervous? What if they're embarrassed? What if there are 1,000 feelings and you want a word? Ain't gonna happen. So sometimes our best efforts do cause more distress. So what we need to do is to kind of work on helping them identify, how bad do you feel? Maybe, I mean, if we get to a point, we can certainly say, how do you feel? But sometimes it's just how bad you feel. I have to just plug, I guess, Inside Out and Inside Out 2. They have really done, I think, a good service of visualizing our emotions, right? I don't know if you've seen either of those, Karen, but Inside Out and Inside Out 2 have really put um, animation, and a voice to all these different feelings uh, and beliefs, which is where some of the more intensive sorts of feelings come from, is those negative beliefs as we get older. So, what additional strategies and activities for self regulation can you think of? So, when we think of self regulation strategies, we're thinking of um, and for every child, there's many things. We really want to start with what is the what's in their interest, what is in their wheelhouse, what helps with sensory integration. We know that sensory integration is the probably an instigator for a lot of people, but we don't if we don't know to ask about it, understanding to action, if we don't know that sensory integration can be a trigger, we won't come up with strategies and to help them with that. So let's provide. So the predictive course here is to provide self-regulation strategies, rehearse self-regulation strategies, swinging, jumping, human burritos. You know what I'm talking about. Those of you out there who have done little human burritos with your children for that proprioceptive sensory integration. Um, brushing. Um, and sometimes it's singing loudly in your room with headphones, and everyone else in the house is like, "Oh my gosh, well, somebody needs self-regulation." The best visual for me about self-regulation is in the movie, I think, Temple Grandin. So the motion picture Temple Grandin with Claire Danes, where she created something to help herself feel better, the squeeze machine. So we don't need to do that. We don't need to go out and make a squeeze machine, but we know self-regulation is a trigger. for dysregulated states and stress. So in the stress book, there are lots of strategies on how to help out. Many of those I use kind of every single day here in my practice and working with families. So think of some self-regulation strategies you can think of for your child that they can kind of practice every day. Little ones, it's sometimes not a fidget. Sometimes fidgets can be dysregulating. So we really need to know and understand from their child, is that a strategy? All right, let's talk about positive and effective communication. Frequently asked question, how do I say and what do I say to my child so they can hear me, understand me, and follow me? And that question gets asked a lot. And so we're going to go in the direction of articulate. Let's talk about how words and language matter. Right out of the gate, what are some facets of ASD? You can speak to your device as you're listening to this. What about ASD makes language and words challenging? And if some of you are saying figures of speech, yep, you're on. Sometimes it's tone, pitch, prosody, all the speech and language challenges that come with ASD are in this purview of how we say, how we help them say, how do they hear what we say? Does it go in or does it get rejected because our voice is too high or our voice is too low or it's scratchy or whatever? Nothing personal, but it's all about how the child person hears language and hears those words and hears those words together. This presentation for me in a words and language matter is something that is that I even kind of struggle with because I'm not pausing much in my communication with you all. I'm imagining an audience, I'm imagining you all out there hearing this. But it's really difficult to not have that nonverbal cue that tells me to keep going, to take a pause. So imagine a child who is in what we think is like, oh, we'll say some stuff and then we'll pause. Oh, that was like a 2-second pause. They didn't say anything. I'm going to say it again. They're still not saying anything. I'm going to say it again. I might even just repeat this several times. And finally, the child blows up without a word, just explodes, throws. And we're like, oh my gosh, out of control child. And we respond and react to out of control child. Well, sometimes when we look back, we say, when we talk about things, we hear things like, I didn't get time to think about what Mitch said. He just said it so fast. I didn't even know what he meant. And so what I do is I encourage kids in here because I know that, understanding to action, because I know that, I try to make that an overt process of our communication with people. When I say things, please raise your hand, stop me, and let's use a code key in some way, shape, or form that tells me I need to allow processing time. And that helps kids. So we're doing preventative again, proactive and preventative strategies to help them. Hey, we're saying some good stuff for them. They would love to use the tools and strategies we have for them. How about we just let that sink in a bit? I say that to myself as much as I say it to you. So just so you know, I have to remind myself of this all the time because it's sometimes not natural for us to think about what it's like for them. Okay. So being in those two places is really important if we're going to be a good co-regulator, good helper. So let's go in the direction of, I think it's going to be reframe, but all those directions are great. Let's go into the direction of reframe, and it is. So again, not a new word to any of you. We use reframe in parenting and education and all kinds of things to help people understand something from a different point of view, okay? And people with ASD need that probably more than anybody I'm aware of because of that sort of singular way in which they can see things and not see things. Some people can't see um, a, a visual in their mind. They can't make up a picture in their brain. And so we need to reframe how we even describe pictures and visuals for that person. So when I say imagine, I may be talking to people out there like, yeah, I wish I could imagine, Mitch, but I've got a thing that I have a hard time describing, so I'll leave it alone. But it's a really fancy word for I can't make the picture in my brain. So we need to understand what it's like. And again, understanding to action. The more we know, the more we understand, the better we can help and work on these challenges with people. So we sometimes we need to reframe a situation, an interaction, a communication to help them see something from a different point of view. Usually that is the cause of stress, um, seeing something one way. Um, usually, um, or that's the cause of some dysregulated state is that people aren't able to see something from a situation, so they read it as they think they should, or they hide from it, they avoid it, they escape it, they isolate. They might, and then they start attacking themselves for, oh, I thought they were mad at me, and the person they're like, no, they weren't mad at them at all. How did you get that? Because that's what I see, that's what I noticed. Oh shoot, okay, we need to change how what also that facial expression might represent to you. So changing perspective on situations and communication. So instead of, for example, I just gave a couple of really kind of common ones that I hear all the time is, don't do something. What I call the pool rules. Okay. So we have a long list of what we can't do at the pool, but nowhere is that person like, where can I just swim and have fun? Where I don't see it. I guess it's not here. So this pool kind of sucks for me. So sometimes kids need to see where they can do things, instead of where they can't do things. And so the negative way of representing don't do is forcing people to kind of read between the lines and infer. And that those kinds of strategies for people with ASD are just really challenging. And so why do it? Let's not. Let's just move from don't to do. Here's what I need you to do. Here's what I think will help you. Um, Here are the things that are on your list to do for interacting with a child. Here is the social skill for, instead of I don't punch, don't hit, don't run away, don't do this, don't do that. Uh, okay. Avoid punitive and punishing language and action. I just gave a don't. So there are some exceptions. And the punitive and punishing language is use positive. Okay. So I just am correcting myself in this presentation with this slide. So I should have said that point should have said use positive, proactive, preventative parenting strategies. Maybe I said it way before, but sometimes we have to say things from two points of view, right? So think about, and I do have a couple of please don't do's, and one of those is using pejorative language. So words and language that intimates a negative connotation, a negative characterization of somebody, like lazy. That can be insulting. It can feel bad. There's no positive form of that, which makes it um, defined as a pejorative word. So think about the words you use with kids, and if it can be used as a positive, great. Let's try and change it to a positive. But if we're saying lazy and we spit it out, pretty sure it's just a pejorative, and we're insulting that child, that person. So let's take time to find the best words to communicate with kids and really to each other about things. This happens when people say, he's just that. He's doing it intentionally. He's doing it this way. None of that is positive. That's very defensive. That does not help the child. It does not help the team that you're working on. So sometimes we really need to work on big team reframing strategies around, one particular child that's suffering in that particular moment. Um, Hold on. What else about reframe? Boy, there's so many reframe. I use reframe. Um, oh, here's another one for you. Let's reframe the word no. again, no is a communication stop. I might have even done a video on this on my YouTube channel. But what we want to do is reframe no to helping that child. We don't have to use authority. They don't often come to us for an authoritative request. When they say, "Can I?" Sometimes we misunderstand that as permission. You know, um, can we have, you know, something like this for dinner? Or can we eat out for dinner at this place? Or can I stay home for dinner while everyone goes out? And instead of saying yes or no, try different words to understand what that child is experiencing and going through. For example, what's the matter? How are you doing? Are you feeling upset? Did something bad happen today at school, work, with your housemates? Um, and how can we, is there a place out? We didn't really come up with a place to go to dinner. Is there a place that you would feel like we just don't have any food in the fridge tonight and didn't, so we would like to go get some food? Is there a place you might feel that would be supportive to the light, sound, um, your senses right now? And that child might say, "Oh, I would really like to go to." Boom, you're there. So we don't have to use yes and no. Um, and so it's not, so let's reframe it from a literal question to more of a process question, a discussion with that person to help them understand what it is they need. I really like reframing no. I think it's used just so much that, and then it doesn't mean anything after a while. It just, you know, um, okay, we will move on. Okay, so um, we have regulate, we have reframe. Let's go to um, number 4 here, feeling down. What's the strategy and direction to go when we are feeling down, discouraged, frustrated, and in despair? My kid is just, they're down. How can I help them? Uh, they're not motivated by anything. They really look and sound like, and sometimes this comes across as they're irritable, cranky little snots, and you're like, yep, yep, yep. That is clearly something that the provider or parent needs to work through before they can get back to co-regulator status, right? I get that. Yeah, I understand that. So sometimes it can just be like really mean spirited, no, no, no. But really that child, and here's the understanding to action part. What do we have? We have a cohort involved called depression, anxiety, distress, maybe a little, acute trauma that about something that happened. So what we want to do is think about how that that cohort is involved with their ASD and how difficult it is to communicate that cohort challenge, like depression, anxiety. So we're going to call in on some of their strengths and some of their superpowers at this time. So this is where we bring in, again, some of their strengths and some of their strategies that help them when they're in dysregulation. Um, so let's go in the direction of lift, to inspire and motivate. And let's see, should we go into redirect, reassure, reinforce? Let's go to reinforce. Really a great strategy. There are so many opportunities. This is a great picture. I just want to leave it up because it just makes me smile. Um, that's where we want to get, is if you see a child in despair, that's the I'm out of despair. I'm feeling it, people, right? That's a great picture. Um, so reinforce as in positive reinforcement. We can, that's the sort of behavioral strategy for reinforcing social skills, social strategies, communication strategies, kind of general behaviors. But reinforce is also something that we can do in subtle ways. Um, and so, because they look to us, they look at how things go, they watch other people. And sometimes we reinforce or negatively reinforce with negative strategies more than we do positive strategies. So oh, there it is. Yeah, we inadvertently reinforce. So let's try to use ourselves as positive sources um, for reinforcement. Sometimes we can do it in funny sort of play acting ways where we screw up, we make a mistake, we can sort of fake rage, not to scare a child or person, but just to show that, oh God darn it, I'm so mad at myself. Why do I always do this? Wait. And then we look at the child person and, again, we don't want to like scare them or we don't want to fake act too well or fake role play too well, but we generally, we have these feelings too. We're kind of mad at ourselves for some of the things we do say, respond to things. So we want to use ourselves. um, Go, oh wait, hold on, I'm going negative, aren't I? All right, you got any good ideas quick, Jeff, while we're working on this? You got any good ideas for dad or mom to get out of this state? You need to do a self-regulation strategy. Great idea. What should I do? What should I do? And then we do something small and kind of fun and help them. We are human. They need to know that we have fallible moments as well. So we can really reinforce just using a lot of who we are. We don't have to be perfect to them in any way. Um, so let's create and just start digging up very positive and adaptive strategies to improve just their basic functioning. Um, just avoid punishment in general, not negative and positive consequences. Uh, we're not diving in too much into that, but there is a big difference. The last two are can be helped in the cause effect learning process, and punishment is demeaning, and it sort of gives those um, mental health cohorts more power, and we don't need to give them more power. So let's avoid punishment, and try positive reinforcement. How do I anything else on lift before we move on? Any ideas from the audience? Oh yeah, no other. Okay,
Oh,
Karen.
there is an audience here, and I'm the voice of that audience. One of the
Awesome. Thank
voices.
you.
I agree with you on the no punishment. It's very punitive and it puts people in a power position. It's not effective, and it just changes the whole dynamics of the relationship. Um, it's just not,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, you want
Yeah,
to give
exactly.
them the power. So yeah, I think you're right on track.
So, do you notice, so some people might feel like they're not in a, they've made a mistake. I mean, that there's one way to kind of reinforce a strategy when they make a mistake, and kind of how to reinforce moving on instead of staying in that past, like um processing that mistake kind of ad nauseum. We want to move through that mistake. It's like just another learning strategy kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
Right.
Mistake is even a bad word. It's not a mistake. It's just really, you have to redirect and you have to, go forward. It's just a moment, a learning experience.
Yes, yes. I guess in my reference, in my context, I use mistake to minimize the tragedy of just these kids going through
Yeah,
natural life kinds of things. Like, you didn't hurt anyone's feelings. You made a social mistake that might involve some repair, and it might involve some plan for so I actually have a video on the 3 steps to making a mistake. And then we can use mistake like I made a mistake. You know,
yeah,
the teacher made a mistake, and it's up to each person to sort of fix their mistake, but they
right.
are like fixable, not perseverative, because you know how
Yeah,
the the folks sometimes get deep into, I'm so bad, I'm so wrong, I screwed up again. So I try to make it kind of not punitive and pejorative about that, and like, nope, it's just a mistake, and we need to make mistakes to learn. And if we don't make any mistakes, we're not going to learn. So let's make
right.
them. Let's just make them, and then but now we have a plan to kind of move through them and not get hung up on. Yeah, because then I'm doing the EMDR for those mistakes that get deeply held and deeply reinforced and strong beliefs, and you know. Nobody needs more therapy. Right. Um, so reinforce using yourself, reinforce positively. It doesn't necessarily mean good job for everything. It might mean a question like, hey, how do you feel about that? Wow, I actually feel good. Like, I think I really did well on that test. Like, what does that feel like? And forget the test because you're going to have 100 tests in front of you. What is the feeling? That's what we're reinforcing. What does that feel like? Oh, it feels great. Like, yeah, hang on to that feeling. We need that feeling for when it doesn't feel great again. That's what we want to be reinforcing.
Exactly.
All right. Another frequently asked question. We're getting near the end here. I don't know how my time is, but we're getting near the end here. So this is let me go back one. So how do I get kids to do something other than video games? Oh, help them be more active, right? Okay, so we're getting to the next direction. And this slide, I think, might have been misplaced. Low confidence, low self-esteem, suicidal ideation is certainly in reference to, I think, the despair. And actually did a podcast recently. I think it was for September because I mean, every month, just like April is, you know, autism awareness and acceptance. Suicidal, ideation and suicide awareness and stuff should be really like, 12 months a year. But
Yeah.
September is sort of when everything sort of, kids can kind of feel, people can feel it more. But we did a podcast on autism and suicide and some project with embracing autism. So I'm sure people will cover that in the conference this week. These feelings of that cohort depression getting worse and how to help with that. So
Yeah, we do
um,
have people that are speaking on suicide that are experts and ADHD
yeah,
in every
mm,
single, every single area
that's
we
great.
to drill into.
That is so great. Yeah. Okay, so let's move those feelings. So moving feelings is, what do you do about how you feel? So move as in, so here we are at the fourth and final direction in the calm compass. Move, get up and get out. Do something about how you feel. Do something about your situation. With rehearse, repair, and recreate, or recreate. Somebody said, "Can I? Is it recreate?" I'm like, it could be recreate. I had it in my head as recreate, but you can certainly recreate. Um, so let's repair. Um, so um, repair and redo. And here's where we get to the mistakes. So we're going to talk about that a little bit in depth so people can leave with some strategies on making a mistake. So social kind of challenges and these social mistakes that kids make are really quite common. Inadvertent. I had a situation the other day when a child acted out aggressively towards another child because they were trying to protect their friend from a friend that they thought was being harmed and hurt by this other group. But really, the kids were. He kind of misunderstood the situation, and it was difficult to kind of help him see that. We eventually kind of got through that. Kids use all kinds of different communication to relate, and especially young people in that middle school range. And so it was difficult for them. So they acted aggressively in their best sort of way that they knew that they read the situation. Um, so we did not. So what happens is generally in that situation is a punishment called uh, dismissal or some either at school or at home. Um, uh, not expelled. Anyway, you guys know the word I'm looking for right now. It lost me, but so that's the punishment, or that's the sort of the educational response, which is fine. I want to move into then help the child repair and fix that and not just punish it, because that punishment does not, that's a massive reading between the lines, and the child's going to miss out. And more importantly, that child is going to feel just because they're not getting an understanding of how they should move through that they are going to feel bad, increased risk for depression, high stress, and just more of the same. It does not give them any skills. So let's give skills to, and so repair, redo is just moving quickly, moving through this, helping them reprocess these many, many social situations that happen in a day for them. I mean, 6 hours of a kid in school walking through halls, sitting in whether it's mainstream or special classes or whatever, is just a lot of work. And they're, you know, it's really hard to make it through a day, without some feeling like I screwed up. Um, so here you go, guys. Here's the 3 steps I talked about earlier. A 3-step strategy to help them fix their mistake: accept, repair the mistake, and make a plan. So it's not we're not heavy on accepting. It just does help them push through these negative feelings, because when they get defensive and when they backtrack into that, it's just about that the psychology of, I've done something bad, I'm a bad person. I mean, so it's eating away at their self-confidence and self-esteem. And so we really want to just get to that, pushing through that, accepting and acknowledge that as just a mistake, minimizing it. For the mistake part, we're going to fix it. So all those out there that are thinking like, well, you can't minimize, aggression. We're not minimizing the action. We're minimizing that, that this was a mistake, and that child feels plenty bad about what happened. And often more so than any of us could probably imagine. Uh, we kind of know that. I certainly hear that a lot. So we just want them to kind of accept, acknowledge. We don't want to put more blame and shame into that. We really want to get to the fixing. And what are you going to do moving forward? Kids with ASD have a hard time getting off that. They have what I call, and what I've talked to them about, is something called sticky brain syndrome. These incidences, these mistakes just get stuck on their brain, and they remember the detail. They remember how they feel. They remember everything. It's just so much, so overwhelming that they just lose it, and they decompensate. They fall to pieces, and that could be, I'm not going to school again, I'm not, and that could be an action on their part that is not really in context with what happened, but it can just feel that bad. So we want to help them move through these experiences. Repair, maybe it means an apology to somebody, maybe it doesn't. An apology is not mandatory. It is just part of a fix. Is part of that repair. And so we can kind of talk about how to do that. Uh, okay, whoops, where'd my mouse go? There we go. Okay. Move. So repair and redo is like a social interaction. So redo is like, let's do a retake. Let's do that again. Let's try that again. I do retakes in here with kids all the time. Hey, hold on. That was that hello or that goodbye. Your head was down here. You're like goodbye, and I'm gonna let's just try one more time. And then they might look up at me, and I'm joking and kind of playing with them. I'm like, goodbye, Mitch. I'm like, that is so much better than blah, 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 blah. So I use a lot of humor. I use a lot of, and it's not always taken, but um, uh, so helping kids kind of move through and do retakes, and again, kind of reinforcing the positive parts of positive communication. So that's the doing part. Let's get them kind of like, hold that door open. You let it slam behind you. I don't know if you saw that. Let's try that again. So this is great for like being around this person in a day. You can do a lot of mini redos, and you can redo them yourself. Sometimes you might say something that's negative to a child about something, and you say, you know what? Let me redo that. I really didn't mean to say it that way. Let me try that again. Can I try that again? And child's like, yes, please. And you say, okay, can you please do this and this and this? But let's add the 30 between now and 5 o'clock tonight, or something like that. And then you say to the child, how did that sound? Did that sound like a better request? And the child's like, yeah, all right, great. And so redo can happen both ways, again, using ourselves. to kind of help them in those situations. So that's connect, articulate, lift, and move, promotes positive parenting, very accessible, best practices. These are tools of best practices for rational and understanding ASD and the challenges that they have. Learning styles, you guys can see these slides. Now, here's the best slide. How do you see yourself using these strategies to better understand your child with their assorted challenges, the cohorts? How do you see that? We're always learning to do better for people with ASD. So that is the post vision. Think about that, write that down, free download, and connect with me that way. And that is the end of my presentation.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Mitch. It's very informative.
Thank you, Karen.
And everybody can reach Mitch at, his email is Mitch, LICSW@gmail.com. And your phone is 651-408-5132. And it's at asdparentingjourney.com. So thank you so much for your presentation today. And I just want to really wish you well in the CALM program. And you've given me extra calm. So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Karen. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, this was really great. Yeah. Really.